The advice to sit less has become a staple of health recommendations in recent years. But a large new study suggests that it's not just how many hours a person spends sitting that matters to the brain, but also what they do during that time. Researchers followed 1,712 adults from middle age to about age 70, and more than 2 decades later, examined their brains with MRI scans. The key finding was that long hours of television viewing was associated with smaller volume in areas of the brain associated with memory and thinking, as well as more evidence of damage to small blood vessels. In contrast, sitting for long hours at work did not show the same correlation. In some cases, those who worked mostly sitting showed a more favorable picture in the brain.
Television and brain shrinkage. The data comes from the long-term American ARIC, Atherosclerosis Risk in Community Study, which has been monitoring the cardiovascular and brain health of adults since the late 1980s. The participants were an average of 53 years old when they joined the study and underwent brain scans about 23 years later. During the study, they were asked, among other things, how often they watched television in their free time and how much of the workday they spent sitting. Those who reported watching TV very often, about 1 in 20 participants, had smaller volumes in several brain regions. These included the frontal and occipital lobes, which are involved in planning, movement, and visual processing. Volume reduction was also observed in areas that tend to be affected in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. The relationship remained even when the researchers took into account factors such as physical activity, weight, smoking, alcohol consumption, and diabetes.
Signs of blood vessel damage. Frequent TV viewing was also linked to more white matter hyperintensities, which are bright areas that show up on MRI scans and are a sign of damage to the small blood vessels in the brain. Such alterations have been associated with an increased risk of stroke, faster cognitive decline, and a greater likelihood of developing dementia. In this study, very frequent television viewing was the strongest factor associated with these changes. The association remained even after excluding people with a history of stroke or other vascular disease.
Sedentary work is not the same. The picture was completely different for those who spent a large part of their day sitting at work. They often showed greater volume in areas of the frontal, occipital, and parietal lobes, and less damage to white matter. A particular difference was found in the frontal pole, an area associated with decision-making, planning, and abstract thinking. Researchers believe one possible explanation is mental activity. Many sedentary jobs require reading, problem-solving, concentration, and decision-making. In contrast, watching television is usually much more passive. So, immobility alone may not be the only problem. How active the brain remains while the body remains immobile may also be important. This doesn't mean that prolonged sitting at work is harmless. Long periods of continuous immobility have been linked to reduced blood flow and other physical health risks.
Differences between men and women. Another interesting finding was that most differences in brain structure occurred in men, not women. Scientists don't yet know why. One possible explanation is that women tend to break up periods of sitting more frequently throughout the day, while men may remain seated for longer periods of time. The key message of the study, published in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia, is that recommendations to sit less may need to be more precise. Movement is still essential, but when someone is sitting, choosing an activity that stimulates thought may be more important for the brain than previously thought. How active are you in your 24-hour day? What do you usually do in your free time? Do you usually spend several hours of the day in an armchair or a couch watching television? And if so, how do you evaluate what you have just heard regarding this?
If you want to see more frequent tips for a better and healthier lifestyle, subscribe to the channel.